My name is Pukhrambam Sanju Singh and I am from Jiri, Manipur. I have recently completed my MA from Manipur, MA in Linguistics from Manipur University. So the name of my topic is Ya and Ja variables of Jiri and Imphal dialects of Meiteiron. And I myself am a speaker of this Jiri dialect of this Meiteiron variety. So the study, this study aims to describe the Ya and Ja variables of Jiri dialect in comparison to Imphal dialect, the standard variety of Meiteiron, also known as Manipuri. Meiteiron is a Tibeto-Burman language of Kukichin group. Its basic word order structure is SOV. It is an agglutinative language. Meiteiron is a language primarily spoken in Manipur, a northeastern state of India, and also spoken in its neighboring states, namely Assam, Tripura, and Mizoram, and in Bangladesh and Myanmar. It serves as a lingua franca in the state Manipur. So Imphal dialect, which is a standard dialect of Meiteiron, is basically spoken in Imphal, and Jiri dialect is a variety of Meiteiron spoken in Jiribam district of Manipur by the Meitei inhabitants. Jiribam is located at the western part of Manipur bordering the state Assam. Jiribam is approximately 230 kilometers away from the capital Imphal. The two dialects are mutually intelligible. Almost all the linguistic elements are structured the same except for some of the lexical differences. But the differences between the two varieties can be seen overtly in the sounds Ya and Ja. So the focus of this study will lie upon these sounds, Ya and Ja. So let us have a quick overview of how different linguists have come up with these two sounds in their phonemic inventories, in the phonemic inventories in their work. Early studies in Meiteiron phonology have diverse descriptions on the phonemic inventories of the language, especially in the classification of consonants in terms of place and manner of articulation. Bhatt and Ningomba, Chelia, Yasavanta classify Ja as palatal stop and use varying symbols, whereas N.G. Santikumar Meitei classifies Ja as alveopalatal affricates with this symbol as its symbol representation, and Vina Singh classifies the voiceless counterpart of Ja as palatal affricate or palato-alveolar affricate, and uses this symbol as its symbol representation, which are analyzed using spectrogram. However, the present paper seeks to only study the dialectal difference which lies between the two sounds Ya and Ja of the two varieties, rather than the phonological description of the language. And therefore, this paper uses Ya, this symbol, as palatal approximant, Ja as voiced palato-alveolar affricates. So let us first see the occurrences of these two sounds in Meiteiron. Ya, palatal approximant, occurs at the initial and medial position in Meiteiron native words, but not in the final position. So for example, in 1 and 2 we can see Yong. Here Ya occurs in the initial position. In number 2, Hayeng, Ya occur in the medial position, which means tomorrow. Ja, voiced palatal alveolar affricate, can occur initially in native word Jagoi, dance, only, and also we have only one example with this sound occurring in the initial position. It is possible that this very word may be derived from this protoform Chakoi, which is found in Sekmite dialect of Meiteiron. Ja also occurs at the middle position, which is the allophonic variation of its voiceless counterpart. Ja does not occur at the final position, as we can see in the example 3 and 4, Jagoi and Khajai. These are the differences we see, we find, we observe in the two dialects. Let us first observe this, and then I will give a brief observance between the two sounds. So these are the examples. This table number 1 gives the example of initial occurrence of this ya and ja sounds. In this is the column of Imphal dialect, the standard variety. This is the column for Jiri dialect. So the first sound, the first word is you, and in Jiribam it is pronounced as ju, ju, and it means liquor. Ya in Jiribam it is pronounced as ja, teed, toot. Yaba in Imphal dialect, Jaba in Jiri dialect. To agree. Jengba in Imphal dialect, Jengba in Jiri dialect. Yamba in Imphal dialect, Jamba in Jiri dialect, and so on. Yot, Jot, Yeiba, Jaiba, Yoba, Joba, Yaingang, Jaingang. So these are the first table, and let's go to the next table. In table number 2, I'm giving the example of ya sound occurring in the medial position in both the languages, in both the varieties. Here we can see hayeng, hayeng, haying, haying in both the. So the occurrence of ya in both the dialects can be seen. We cannot see any difference when this sound occurs in the medial position in the lexical items of both the varieties. So hayeng, hayeng, haying, haying, lying sung, chayul, chayul, mayok naba, layi, layi, mayam, mayam, hiyangai, hiyangai, yamba, yamba. So in the table of data displayed above, it can be seen that the initial sound of each lexical item in Jiri dialect is pronounced as ja, as shown in table number 1. In table number 2, no difference between the two varieties can be seen. So analyzing the way it occurs, it somehow shows a systematic change between the two sounds. So it should be noted that, it should also be noted that not all the speakers of Jiri dialect pronounce ja in the initial position. So then, who are those who sometimes pronounce ya in place of ja of this dialect? So in order to check this, data have been collected from YouTube, Facebook, and audios were recorded while interacting with Meiteiron speakers of Jiribam. Data were collected from 3 age groups. Group A ranging from 5 years to 20 years, Group B 21 to 50 years, and Group C people who belong to 51 years and above. Audios of a total of 70 people could be collected as of now, containing each group of people. Sources of data were from audios of call records, recordings in phone while having conversation with the speakers, and videos collected from Facebook and YouTube. Data were collected from speakers of different places of Jiribam. It has been observed that regardless of their age, gender, class, and educational background, all the speakers were somehow exposed to ya sound of the Imphal dialect occurring in the initial position, and conscious about the difference between the two sounds, pronounce ya and ja interchangeably. That is, for instance, a speaker pronounces jengba and yengba interchangeably. And the speakers who are not exposed to the Imphal dialect and or not consciously bothered about the difference of the two sounds pronounce it ja. Cases of hypercorrections found in Jiri dialect. Data have been analyzed in 2 ways in regard of hypercorrection, oral and written. There is no doubt that in linguistic analysis, written text or written data is not considered a good data for analyzing a sound. But here I will be taking some part of written text in order to show the kind of thing going on in the minds of Jiri speakers while they are confused in choosing ya and ja in their written text. It is observed that some of the speakers who are conscious about the difference between the two sounds occurring initially come up with the over generalization of the sound by producing those lexical items which actually begin with ja sound. For instance, jat, which is a borrowed sound, a borrowed lexical item, is pronounced as yat. This is a case of hypercorrection. So a speaker writing something chooses the most appropriate letter to make it presentable in a public platform. Meitei script shows one-to-one correspondence with its phonemes. Because of that, even though we are in social media platform, in Facebook, even though we are using the speakers, even though they are using the Roman script, they always try to use the most appropriate letter for the representation of particular sound. So it is observed that some of the speakers use the letter Y in certain lexical items which actually begin with ja sound in a certain text where both the letter J and Y are used. So let us go through that example. So let us see the examples collected from Facebook. Here in this example number 5 and 6, let me read it out. Masidabu kanana mapan thokchinba yai hairasu thoktoino kadar se yat ni taurise. Intending candidate si yamdi yambane adubu manu bhutna nainabada yaudri si invite phangdabaira natraga jiribam gi MLA oibada matik chade khande yaudri yatla. I bhab tadre adu anyway nuairani nasidi jiri gi damakta khallisi kanano do yenge public ama oina aduga matik chamada aikoi support piba haidune. So here in these two examples we can see the usage of the borrowed lexical item jat as yat. So one might argue that this y can also be pronounced as jat by some particular speaker, but in this example number 6 we can see that the particular speaker is using J in a lexical item where it is needed to be pronounced as ja. So it kind of gives us an analysis that the speaker of Jiribam, some of the speakers of Jiribam find it confusing to choose the correct sound of in regard of these two varieties. So here in the example 5 and 6, the form yat, which the speakers of Imphal pronounce jat, is written starting with y, which basically represents the ya sound. The lexical item is borrowed from Indo-Aryan language, which is jat, meaning kind of something or class. This may be because of the overgeneralization of ya sound. It is to be noted that this kind of sound correction, this kind of hypercorrection is done by those who consciously think that ya is the correct sound in comparison to ja sound. Similarly, the word jagoi, as mentioned earlier, jagoi, which means dance, is pronounced and sometimes written as yagoi, yagoi and yagoi respectively, which is also a case of hypercorrection.
You have 2 minutes more.
Okay. Why ja in the initial position of Jiri dialect? From 1819 to 1826, for a period of 7 years, Manipur remained under the Burmese occupation. This period is known as Chehitaret Khuntakpa in Manipur history. During this period of 7 years, the ever largest number of Manipuri left Manipur and took shelters in Kasar, Sylhet, and Gentia Hills. Those Manipuris who had settled earlier in Sylhet later on migrated to the British-occupied Kasar in the post-annexation phase, that is August 14, 1832, for different reasons. In 1901, total Manipuri population in Kasar was 42,000 and in Sylhet district it was 30,000. That time, Manipuri speaking constituted the third largest group in Kasar, that is 61% Bengali, 21% Hindi, 11% Manipuri. History is evident that the settlement of Meitei people in Jiribam began in 1906 during the reign of Raja Dumra Singh. Meitei, along with other various communities from Kasar, were made to settle in Jiribam. According to the latest data of Census of India, C16 population by mother tongue, the total Meiteiron speakers in Jiribam are 13,335 and that of Bengali speakers are 22,267. Now, considering the facts above, one possible reason for having such kind of systematic difference, that is the occurrence of ja in initial position in Jiri dialect, maybe because of the long coexistence of Meiteiron speakers with the Bengali speakers. So Bengali lacks ya sound where it is in the initial position and pronounce it as ja in the initial position. So therefore it may be claimed that Meiteiron speakers who were coexistent with Bengali people for a long period of time acquired a feature of Bengali language. So here comes my conclusion. This paper preliminarily describes ya and ja variables of Jiri dialect in Meiteiron in comparison to Imphal dialects, the standard variety of Meiteiron. This paper claims that Meiteiron speakers of Jiribam pronounce the initial sound as ja for those lexical items beginning with ya in Imphal dialect. This paper also claims that those Jiri speakers of Meiteiron who are exposed to the standard variety and are conscious about the difference between the varieties with respect to the sounds concerned pronounce the ya and ja variables interchangeably. This research work shows the phenomenon of hypercorrection regarding the ya sound in Jiri dialects as well. And lastly, this paper also tries to give a probable reason for having such a systematic variation between the two dialects. And here is my reference. Thank you.